Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Ladies Tale podcast. I'm trying to keep the camera real close to my face because it's in between getting my hair done day. So just in case you wonder what Winona looks like without her hair getting done, it's a little fuzzy on the sides. And I don't want y'all to see that because, I'm a narcissist. And this is an LA interview, and you're supposed to always look your best when you're doing an LA interview. I'm literally right now searching for, I'm glancing to the side, like, do I have lipstick? Where's the lipstick? But that's okay. I'm gonna go with it. I'm gonna go with ugly Winona, and so that means I'm not gonna talk much. So we wrote books, and I say we. There's normally a Jade, and there's no Jade today. But and I thought divorce was bad, and I thought being grown-up seeds, if only our memoir in verse, foreign coffee, widow's web, and widow's debt. All of those books are audiobooks, and if you were counting with me, that is 6 audiobooks. So you can get those audiobooks wherever audiobooks are found. Now, we've written a few more, like 12 more. So if you want to see those, you go to www.andithoughladies.com. And since ugly Winona can't stand looking at herself anymore, I'm not sure if I should even admit that. I'm sorry. I'm taking that back. And I am beautiful in all shades and forms of me. Woo! That felt like a good lie to tell myself, yes. But anyway, you're not here to hear any more about me. You're here to hear about our wonderful guest. Wonderful guest, would you like to introduce yourself?
Okay, I'm Judi Levine. I'm a producer, film producer, most and documentaries, narrative and documentaries. And I will just say that the minute you popped on the screen, I thought, what a gorgeous looking woman. And we both got the red memo today. So we're both wearing red. And yes, you are gorgeous, I'm sure, inside and out, even though we've just met, but you seem absolutely gorgeous. You've got a fantastic smile. So all those people listening out there, believe me, Winona, terrific, gorgeous. If you saw her on the street, you'd be all over it. So let me tell you a little bit about me, I guess. Anyway, I'm a producer that is obviously not American, but I am. I'm a dual citizen with Australia. I've been in LA for 30 years, but I've been straddling 2 continents and making projects, especially more recently in Australia. So I'm doing a lot more stuff in Australia, but I have projects in the States and I have a family in the States. I've got 3 kids here, sometimes 3 too many. But I have 2 in LA and 1 in Michigan. So I'm very acclimated to America. I still feel like an Aussie inside. I still sound like an Aussie, even though my kids are all all sound American. And I love making movies. It's what gets me up in the morning. I've been doing it since I graduated from film school 100 million moons ago. And I do, if I can, like to make movies that actually leave people with something to think about, even if it's a romantic comedy. I made a romantic comedy. We started it in 2019. We finished it during COVID in 2020. We shot it in Scotland, and then we finished the post-production in Australia. It's called Falling for Figaro. It's on Hulu. You can watch it there. It's very entertaining. It's set in the brutal world of opera competitions. Even a film like that you might feel is just a romantic comedy, it's really about a young woman working out how to strive for what she really wants in her life, and also learning that it doesn't happen overnight, that it takes a lot of work. So there's something to be said there. And I've made a film that sort of was the film that put us on the map in LA, I guess. For a long time we were here, we couldn't get arrested in this town. And it was a real struggle. People say, why did you come to Hollywood? Well, for the promise of fame and fortune and streets paved with gold. But like after about 10 or 11 years, that wasn't happening. I was almost ready to go back to Australia. I was like, oh, I got the house painted and the dogs immunized and I was ready to go. But we made a film called The Sessions with Helen Hunt and John Hawkes and William H. Macy. And it was about a guy in an iron lung, which was a breathing apparatus for people who'd had polio, and his relationship with a sex surrogate based on a true story. He was in Berkeley. Helen Hunt played the sex surrogate. John Hawkes played the guy in the iron lung. William H. Macy was a priest. And the film just really exploded at Sundance and then throughout the following year. And Helen was nominated for an Oscar, and John and Helen were both nominated for Golden Globes, and they both won at the Independent Spirit Awards, and we won a bunch more awards for that film. So it really was the film that not only put us on the map, but I guess is the dearest to my heart, because it really actually moved the needle. It changed people's lives. It continues to change people's lives. It opened up a conversation about people with disabilities and their sex lives, their sexual identity, their yearning to have intimacy in a world that generally sees people with disabilities and, they run in the other direction. They don't know how to handle things. They feel awkward and uncomfortable. They don't see people with disabilities as sensual, sexual beings. So that was very exciting. It did sort of throw me and my husband, who had polio, so he's a person with a disability, into a lot of other movies. When you make a movie, it doesn't matter whether you're making it about the mafia or you're making it about disability, everybody will come to you with more stories about disability, and you don't always want to do it again. But we have done it again in a couple of other ways, and I do see that all of us are vulnerable people. We've all have some sort of internalized baggage that we're carrying, and so it's relevant in so many ways, and to so many different things. And I think with the sessions, one of the reasons people really responded because a lot of it was about just learning about sex for the first time, and pretty much we've all been there. And anybody over the age of whatever it might be, wherever you might live, right? It could be 12 for all you know, but hopefully not. So that's what rocks my boat. I'm still doing it. It's never easy. Making movies is an incredibly hard thing to do, and it's got harder, I think, since the pandemic and since people stopped going to cinemas as much, except for tentpole movies. In my world of art house, I think you really we're sort of in other countries, people are going back a lot to see movies, international movies, local movies, whatever. In America, they're still coming slowly to see films other than Barbie. So that's kind of where I'm at. It's what I love doing, and I've got lots of stuff in development, and I'm doing documentaries as well as narrative, as I said.
So how do you produce? What's the difference between producing a documentary and producing a narrative?
I have a documentary that I started over 20 years ago with a group of young teens from far north Queensland. They're Indigenous teens, Aboriginal community, very remote, who saved up to come to Hollywood. That's where they wanted to go. They'd never been on a plane. This was a huge adventure. It was like going to the moon for them. And I started that then. I happened to meet somebody who was involved with the project, and I thought, well, we got to shoot this. And I shot 50 hours of film, and life just got in the way. And I'm now back there interviewing them as adults with kids of their own about how that experience changed their lives and changed the community. That's documentary. It can drag out for a really long time. Even with my other documentary, I just setting aside the time to really dive deep and work out how you tell that narrative, I find more challenging. And you are dealing with real people a lot of the time, unless it's historical, and then you've got a lot of sort of things to juggle, particularly with people's lives and trying to get people together at the same time and trying to raise the funding for it. And documentaries is not a great way to make a living, so that's tough. Narrative film can also take a very long time to develop, but once you actually start, once you get the financing, you've got your casting, then every step generally follows within a certain limited time frame. So if you're adapting a book, it can take longer because it's quite a while to get a script that really works. If you have a screenplay that might have taken a couple of years to write, but it's kind of ready to cast, then you go through your casting process, takes a while. Then you go through, raising the money when you've got the cast. Then you go through your pre-production, your production, your filming. That little period is usually about 12 months. And then you're into releasing it. But there's a sort of, for me, there's a more condensed time frame than I'm finding when I'm working on documentaries. I think unless you're a full-time documentary filmmaker, and even then, I think documentaries, you can be in the cutting room for way longer than you are with a feature film.
I've done a horrible documentary, and I've sold a horrible documentary. It's still a horrible documentary. I was just looking at it yesterday. I love the story, and then I looked at it and was like, still bad. Definitely my first attempt.
But you got it made. You know, that's the thing about movie making. And I don't think people acknowledge it enough. Every single step of getting a movie made is hard. You know, the most fun for me is when we're shooting. Every other stage is, you know, so hard and stressful. I mean, I'm in post-production on a film we shot in Melbourne last year. And, you know, we just looked at a rough cut, and it's like, you know, in some ways, the assembly, which is when you just piece together all the scenes in order, felt like it worked better than when you've got a rough cut, you've cut it down to, you know, 100 minutes and it's just not working, and you've got to really deconstruct and go back in and work out what's missing and try everything all over again, and you're sort of feeling a bit like, oh, got to go back into the trenches again. And then, of course, trying to get people to sell it and then see it, and, you know, all of that. It's like, and raising the money, oh, don't even go there, but, you know, it's just, it's very tough, and there's a handful of people right at the top of the pyramid who, you know, manage to do well. And I know a lot of people who've made really terrific, very successful independent movies over the years that still struggle to put the money together for the projects they want to do.
All right,
it's a risky business.
We have 1 minute before she has to go. So I got to ask you a 2-part question, 3-part question, maybe 4. I'm going for 4. All right, make them quick. You have How to Please a Woman out. You have the Castle Writers Retreat coming up. Can you tell us a bit about those 2? And then number 3, can you give us a bit of advice if you were out here and you're like, I want to shoot a movie from a book? What are the 3 top things they need to know? And then where can we find out more information about you and watch your movies?
Okay, so How to Please a Woman is a movie we shot in Australia. It's on Hulu. It's a terrific movie about women's empowerment and learning to ask for what you want at home, at school, and in the bedroom, at home, at work, and in the bedroom. It came out at the same time as Leo Grand, you know, but it's actually more fun than Leo Grand in a lot of ways. And if we'd had Emma Thompson, we would have got more attention. But it's on Hulu. It's a lot of fun. It's won a bunch of awards. So I highly recommend that. The other film you mentioned is not mine, so I think that's the other Judi Levine.
No, you're going to Rockabirty Castle Writers Retreat.
So the Writers Retreat. Yes. Sorry, I thought that was a movie you were referring to. So I did this once before last year. I was in Italy with them. Rockabirty is an organization that puts together a group of, actually, I was surprised, really quite experienced writers, although they're not usually anybody who's had anything made, bring together a bunch of mentors who are experienced filmmakers, either producers, writers, directors, and they pair up a group, like 3 or 4 people, with a mentor. They come with a project that's already sort of been submitted for evaluation, and then you spend a week of intensely kind of going over those projects together, all of you talking together, and the mentor giving advice, and then, you know, you basically hope that people will go away feeling like they've moved forward with their projects, and you can talk to them about where they might take those projects, etc., etc. So I'm a bit of a novice because I've only done it once. Some of the other people have done it a few times. Italy was terrific on the island of Ischia. This coming year, it's going to be in France, in south of France, and I'm a huge Francophile. I thought I was French in some other life. I lived there for a while. I just love being there. So it's like, in my heart, it's like another home for me. So I'm really looking forward to that.
I mean, go for a third duel. Go for a third citizenship. Just go for it.
Yeah, well, I could actually. Hang on a sec, dog going crazy.
Go for a third citizenship.
Well, you know, my parents are were European. My husband was born in Poland. We could easily have that EU passport if we really wanted it. But, you know, I'm okay with 2 passports, and I've got British resident status. So I'm very much a citizen of the world. I do love that. And so yes,
I'm jealous.
Passport. I know. It's just the way my life's worked out. But I'm very proud of being Australian too, I have to say. I mean, we have some things that we can be ashamed of, but we've also, you know, it is a good country with mostly good people. And then your third question was about advice to people who are looking to adapt a book. It's tricky. I think that one of the hardest things is that often a novelist will want to be a screenwriter, and it's very rare. I mean, Mario Puzo could do it, right? He wrote screenplays and he wrote novels, but a lot of the time, what I've come up against is writers who simply they don't understand really the nature of storytelling in film. You know, there's the old adage, don't ruin a good story with the facts. knowing what to weed out. Very often a novelist is very attached to everything in it, or they will write the story in exactly the same sort of, generally linear, sort of nature of a novel, and a film can be all sorts of other things. It doesn't have to be linear at all. So, if you can persuade, sometimes I'll let a writer do the first draft, but it's never worked. I've never found one who's actually been able to come up with a first draft that matched, whatever. You're telling a story in an hour and a half. Well, some people take 3 hours these days, but generally speaking, 90 minutes, 100 minutes, which I think is a more watchable thing, especially with everybody. So, everything's so fast with social media today that it's nice to get people to sit down and just focus on one thing for 3 hours, but it's hard. So, you then have to have find somebody who can write a really good adaptation. And I find that a big stumbling block, because if you want a really experienced writer, they need good money. Finding that money is not that easy. So that's a tough part to really focus on. If you get a great writer who is able to do a really good adaptation, it's always a few drafts, but the other difficulty, and I've been through this, is that you get a writer to do an adaptation, doesn't work, and then you've got to find another writer, and you have to know when to stop with one particular writer, and you have to be able to say to them, I'm sorry, it's not working, someone else needs to do this. And then it's great if you can get onto a book before it's, if it's got 2 million followers already, fantastic, but you'll probably find it's not available. If you find a book that hasn't had a lot, hasn't actually been published, or isn't getting a lot of traction, say, on the various book apps like where yours are, and you get in early, but it's attracting some attention, or it has a substantial following, or it's going to say something fresh and new and different, and it's a new voice, then it sort of adds to the length of everything, because you end up spending a fair bit of time, like you might be out on another 2 years to get the script that you actually want. And then you start with all the rest of it. You've got a script, you've got a cast, you've got to raise the money, you've got to, go on from there. So I think if you have a book that you really think could attract attention or would make a great movie, you have to try and track down the producers who are doing that, I think, who have a whole sort of mechanism in place. They have maybe a company and a bunch of readers, whatever else, who will have the time, and if it's something you think will interest them, that will have the time to read the book and then go through that process, and maybe have the deep pockets or know where they can find that funding. So look at films that have been adapted from novels, see who's behind those films, target trying to talk to those people, or whatever. It's all easier said than done. I realize that, especially you find something and Netflix has released it and you can't get in past, you can't get past the gatekeepers or whatever. But and I think going to events where you get to network with people and talk to other people, writers events, or in a writing group, or just I don't know, talking to people like me or whatever, and just get out there and do it. You got to get up and do it every day. Even it doesn't have to be all day. And if you get slapped in the face, you got to really embrace rejection. Like, you got to love it when people say, oh no, this is not for us. Like, you go, oh good, great, another rejection. But it just, if you talk to somebody, then always ask them if there's someone else that they can put you onto, so that so the meeting hasn't been a waste. You've gone off and gone to the next person. And just, and when they do knock you down, take two. I always say take 2 or 3 days to kind of take care of yourself, do some self-care, do whatever it is that rocks your boat, spend time with people who make you feel good about yourself, go for walks, get stoned, whatever it is that you do, and just but not for too long, right? Just not for too long. You can't, don't let that kind of take over. Just set yourself I need a couple of days to step away from this, and then I'm going to step back in again and start all over again. Does that answer your question?
I have to say, I love that advice. I love that advice. And as writers, we already know this, because what less than 1% of the books that are going to go out are going to get published. So, I mean, all we ever do is get rejection.
Yeah.
And we're kind of used to it. So, I mean, this is
And
rejection with feedback.
there's films, you get films that get made and no one ever gets to see them. You get films that get buried before they even get out, or, I mean, you just have to trawl through all the streaming platforms. There's a zillion films out there. And then when I go to Australia, there's a whole lot of European films that are terrific that never get seen in America. There's some, and Scandinavian and whatever else, and Asian. There's just, some other really great storytelling out there that just never makes it to our platforms unless you're looking for it. Go to Canopy, Kanopy. Go to Canopy. It's a free platform. You just need a library card. Great movies, and you might get some inspiration for your next novel.
Ooh, I am loving this. Now, where can people find out more information about you, and where can they see your movies?
The sessions, they're all online pretty much. The sessions, you have to pay for it. I think it's streaming on all the basic Amazons and YouTubes and those places, but you still have to pay, which is, I mean, we made that film in 2011, released it in 2012. The fact that people still can't just watch it on a regular streaming platform, maybe on Amazon Prime, you can watch it without having to pay. I'm not sure. So the sessions is everywhere. I highly recommend people watch it. It's very entertaining. It's you need tissues for the end of the movie probably, but it's it's an uplifting end of the movie. Let me see. How to Please a Woman is on Hulu. Falling for Figaro is on Hulu. My Eyes, which is the one I've been working on, is not out yet. My husband and I made a very fun film, which is perfect for now, called Hollywood Gold, which is, you just have to type in Hollywood Gold Ben Lewin, because there's about 4 of them. But if you put in Ben Lewin, you'll see it. It's a short documentary about the Oscars and jewelry, and it's sort of intertwined with the way the jewelry and the watch business works, because that's a sort of a crazy sideline of ours. That's a fun documentary to watch. I mean, my husband gets annoyed, but it's only 50 minutes, so it's an easy watch. You don't need to set aside hours. So that Hollywood Gold, I think, is on YouTube. What else is out there? My husband did a film called Please Stand By with Dakota Fanning and Toni Collette, and Dakota Fanning plays a young woman on the spectrum, and that's a terrific, wonderfully entertaining film. And we did a historical film called The Catcher Was a Spy with Paul Rudd and Paul Giamatti. And Catcher Was a Spy, I think it's on Netflix now. So that's enough of the movies to see. That's a full weekend's watching.
Yes, I was like, there's some that I've heard of, and I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna watch those now. I've got like at least 3 now that I'm watching like this week. That's happening. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, you're welcome. This has been really terrific. I'm glad we connected. Go off and get your hair done, but even if you don't need to, enjoy that time, just pampering yourself. We all need to pamper, and you look fine without the lipstick. And I've only got it on because I'm going out. So
So I'm going to go ahead and wrap us up. So you can find everything that your ladies are doing at www.andithoughladies.com. And while you're there, go down to the middle of the page. Actually, it's the bottom of the page. I lied. And you can see the charities that we proudly support. We ask that you give them support too. That does not mean that you have to send them a check. You could just call them up and give them advice or volunteer, these sorts of things. But we thank you in advance for helping them. And we remember that, y'all, that wisdom is all around you if you're open to finding it and accepting it. So peace and love, you guys, from Winona and the Missing Jade. Oh, yeah. Thanks for listening.